Good evening, everybody. Hello, hello. If you can hear, no, I'm not going to do that elementary school teacher thing. I'm so glad you're here. My name is Marg Walker. I'm one of the 4 co-hosts of the Midstream Reading Series. If you're here for the first time, welcome. You're entering into a multi-year, I mean, how many years? 14, 15 year tradition of Midstream Reading Series. And we've only recently been meeting here and are grateful for this space. You're filling the space nicely, so if you're comfortable where you are, that's great. If anybody in the back can't hear at some point, please wave down the speaker and we'll make sure we're close enough to the mic for you. I'm going to leave the door open for a while because we often have people just, coming in at about the right time. We probably want to close the door a little bit later, and I don't think the room is going to get too hot tonight because it feels pretty good. But if it's hot, anybody sitting near the door that wants to open it to feel more comfortable, please feel free. I'm going to send around a sign-up sheet. Midstream sends out just reminders for this reading, which is every second Thursday of every month. And so if you want to be on the mailing list to receive notices of who's going to be coming up and what the date is to get on your calendar, please sign in, and otherwise you can pass this along. There you want it, help yourself. What else? Oh, if you might need a restroom this evening, instead of when you go out the door, just take a right and go down the hall and you'll find what you're looking for. Many varieties of restrooms. I think we have enough time this evening to do a quick introduction. It's been a long tradition of Midstream to just find out who's in the room. We have a lot of people come that just are interested in listening to poetry. A handful of writers come. So you never know who's going to be here, and I always like to help us get acquainted with others in the community of people that love poetry. So if we could just say like a word or two about who you are and why you're here. Start with you.
So my name is Dougie Padilla, and I'm a longtime Minnesota/Wisconsin artist and poet and activist.
And one of our readers tonight. Thank you, Dougie.
I'm Frank Hudson. I do a thing called the Parlando Project, which is combined mostly literary poetry that wasn't intended to be performed with original music in various styles. It's 750 of them. They're available online if you look for the Parlando Project.
My name is Jim Gabe. I watch too much news on TV, so I come to these.
The news that stays news.
Yeah. I'm Susan Jacobson. I am Dougie Padilla's artist rep and poetry rep.
Yeah, Morgan Grace Will, I'm a poet. Mary Kay Rummel, I'm a poet.
Marcia Peck, a retired musician and writer.
And a reader tonight.
Susan Steger Welsh, writer, Marcia fan.
I'm Shelley Gilmurray, and I'm here to see Marcia.
I'm Dave Tamiga, and I'm the guy that carries the books for Marcia.
Diane Pellickson, I'm a longtime writer. Used to write poetry when I was an undergraduate at the U of M. But now I'm just here to listen and support my husband, who's doing the recording as one of the organizers.
Then I need no introduction.
Sure.
I'm Paul Mattis. I'm one of the hosts and a poet, and I run the website and the YouTube channel and such.
I'm Mary Moore Easter. I'm a poet. Just by checking out.
June Lewinson, I'm a poet. I also facilitate a reading series. So if any of the writers want to see me after, I could take your information. Maybe you could read in my series. Thank you.
I'm Gretchen Henson. I'm a poetry lover, and I facilitate the poetry readings of June.
I'm Jan Johnson Drentel, and I'm not going to stand up because it's a little difficult for me to do that, but I'm a poet and a writer, and I recently moved back to the Twin Cities. I was in the San Francisco Bay Area for 40 years. So,
And I'm Mary Pat Landrick. I'm a poet and writer, and looking back in history, I am one of the co-founders of the Twin City Women Poets in 1970, when we were excluded from poetry readings because we weren't writing real poetry. And we would be invited if we knew any women poets, but we didn't.
so we made our own reading series.
Yes, and Jan was also there.
I'm Brian Satcham. I'm a poet and an avid reader of poetry.
My name is David Smith. I'm from Kansas City, just moved to Minneapolis shortly. I do poetry and also write.
I'm Vicki Nyman, and I came to hear all of you.
I'm Joey Platzinger, and I'm a poet and painter, and I work as a poet in residence in preschool. It's really nice to be in a room full of good people.
I'm Scott Dutch. I'm a carpenter and a poet, and I am a member of Basel Poetry Company. And I did come here to see Dougie because he said I should say that.
Promotion is difficult for many writers. I'm glad that you got it.
Believe me, people are improvising now.
I'm Tim Young. I'm a poet and podcaster, and I came to scare Dougie.
Jesus.
Hi, I'm just back from Michigan. I'm the Duke of Earl. I'm my number one song in 1962. Otherwise, Len Fessy, and I'm just here because I got lost going somewhere. Happy to be here. I come all the time.
Tish Jones, poet.
And reader tonight.
I am Jan Elfman. I'm a visual artist, and I'm a big fan of good.
I'm Peck. I'm a writer, and I'm in a writing group with Marcia, and I'm very excited to hear everyone tonight. I'm also back here.
That's the first time I've heard that particular piece of bio here at the. It's great. I mean, we have a really great room. We always do. You know, people that are writers and people that are in different art, do different kinds of art, and I love it that people want to come and hear each other and get, for me, always inspired by what others are writing and thinking about. So thank you. Welcome to everyone. I wanted to say too that I got an email late this afternoon that one of our 4 readers is unable to make it tonight. So that we're sorry about that. Mona Susan Power was to be with us tonight. She came down with what I guess one hopes would be food poisoning and not something worse, but she's feeling terrible. And so she's very sorry not to be here and to hear the other writers that are on the docket tonight. And I will make a point of making sure she gets here soon. And if you follow our emails, you'll know when that will be.
Does that mean we get to divide up her time?
No. That means we get to do introductions tonight. And not be concerned about going on too late. So it is customary in this reading series to have the host read a poem at the beginning, and I think that's partly just to get the room kind of settled into the listening to poetry mode. So I appreciate that chance to do it. I've spent some time over the last year thinking about, downsizing and getting rid of stuff, and thinking about inheritance and what kinds of things I inherited from my family, and pretty quickly then started thinking about what does my son inherit from me. And it produced this poem called Inheritances for Jonathan and for James. And what would you say I have given you for good? So much of you comes from your own making, just as I came from mine. Is that inheritance too? Not the mahogany sideboard, no. Though yes to the family silver in its velvet-lined case that my father bought in England during the war. and shipped home to his bride. The W on each handle is not yours, but it belongs to you. Yes, to the stories you come from. No to overthinking, to habitual worry about money. No to pretending not to feel what you are feeling. There are family rules worth breaking. But something in the way you nestle baby James in the crook of your arm as he looks with deepest inquiry into your eyes. How you want to hold his gaze for hours. This unfathomable love, how you give yourself up to be astonished by it. This, I think, yes, this. Now on to the real deal. Our first reader is Marcia Peck. Her debut novel, Water Music, A Cape Cod Story, has won the Literary Titan Award, Next Generation Indie Book Award, and the New England Book Festival's Award. Her award-winning fiction has appeared in New Millennium Writings, Chautauqua Journal, Gemini Magazine, Glimmer Train, 26 Minnesota Writers, Tribute to Orpheus II, A Sense of Place, Cape Women Writers, among others. Her flash fiction, Long Distance, was nominated for a Pushcart Prize. Essays have appeared in Showcase, the magazine of the Minnesota Orchestra, Strad Magazine, Strings Magazine, and the Minneapolis Star Tribune, and Musical America. So you're getting ready for the next sentence. Before joining the cello section of the Minnesota Orchestra, Marcia studied at the Curtis Institute of Music in Philadelphia and Schumann Conservatorium in Dusseldorf. Her life in music has inspired her to look for the rhythms and sounds of music echoed in language. Growing up, she was a cat person, but she's learned to love dogs, even the naughty ones, maybe especially the naughty ones. Welcome, Marcia.
Thank you, Marg. I'm honored to be here tonight. I see that I'm over my head with all these poets in the room. I thought I would read just a brief prologue from Water Music, and then a scene about halfway through the book. Lily, 12-year-old Lily Granger, is spending the summer on Cape Cod with her family. Her father's a school teacher, so they are able to go and camp out for the whole summer. I'll just go ahead. The bridge at Sagamore was closed when we got there that summer of 1956. We had to cross the canal at Buzzards Bay over the only other roadway that tethered Cape Cod to the mainland. That was the summer the cello proved to be my steadfast companion, although I would have had it otherwise. My mother had to make do without a piano of her own, which did not augur well. Music had always been her refuge. And my father was dead set on building a cottage, built the right way, which was to say, better than Uncle George's, when we couldn't afford it. We thought we spotted the Andrea Doria moments before it sank, and I discovered the small ways in which people try to rescue each other. Our property fronted a salt pond whose fertile waters hatched clams the size of a toenail, infant eels no bigger than a bobby pin, and young crabs so fragile you could crush them between two fingers. When they matured, they found their way out the creek, an outlet booby-trapped with rocks from an old abandoned mill, and followed it out to Pleasant Bay, that vast, shallow body of water which, like a long adolescence, spanned the distance between our pond and the full-fledged, fathomless ocean. Tides filled and emptied our small world, and I tried to figure out who belonged to whom. I longed to belong to my mother, but I learned that summer that she was like a teacup, spilled out and upside down on the saucer, and she couldn't right herself. She thought she was mad at my father. She didn't know that, she didn't recognize that fiercer winds than his tore at her. All summer the storm gathered and gathered, took its breath from every direction we thought we knew, and lashed us into spindrift. And all the while, surrounding us, holding us up like the sea we floated on, was the music. Lily and her mother are driving to Lily's cello lesson in Wellfleet, to her weekly cello lesson. To get to Wellfleet, we had to pass Blackfish Creek, named for the pilot whales that periodically stranded in the shallows along the shore north of Eastham. No one drove that stretch of road without a long look, no matter how long it had been since the last stranding. It was said that the whales beached themselves deliberately and died, not from lack of food or water, but from their own body weight pressing on their lungs and heart. The mates of stranded whales would linger in the waters offshore long after it was certain their partners were lost. People who lived in the area knew this because they heard the singing, lonely songs of animals who lived in the ocean but were mammals like us. Near the end of July, the Cape Codder reported that a pod of mothers and juveniles had been discovered milling in the shallows, the first such incident in a number of years. Townspeople with a certain amount of self-importance that theirs was the chosen beach had convened a small flotilla of skiffs and trawlers and herded or towed as many as they could back out to sea. There was a photo on the front page. The rest were trapped on the beach when the tide went out and were abandoned there to die. These were the hopeless cases my mother and I encountered on the way to my lesson that afternoon, the day I found out that we were in trouble because Daddy said, no, we weren't. It was hot and Route 6 was empty. During the drive, my mother had kept her preoccupied eyes steadfastly on the road, as though evidence could be found there for bolstering her case against my father, so that she could re-argue all the ways my father was wrong about Bertha Melrose. That's the grandmother. Making my father the unreasonable one and Bertha Melrose the misunderstood one. But as we approached Wharf Road, she slowed down. 8 black mounds loomed out of the shallows like the hulls of grounded ships. She stopped the car on the shoulder and let it idle for a minute. No one was around. It was hard to see anything clearly. She squinted in the direction of the whales, then looked up and down the road. She pondered a minute. Finally, she turned off the ignition. I suppose I should take a look, she said. This was a distraction worthy enough to interrupt her brooding. I popped open my door. You stay here, please, I asked. I'll be right back. She crossed the road and stood at the edge of the water, hand indecisively on her hip. Can you see anything? I called. She glanced at me momentarily and then reached down to remove her shoes. I got out of the car and crossed the road. She was out on the flats by the time I got my shoes off and waded out to her. I thought I told you to stay in the car. Then her whole face shrank at the smell. Stay close, you understand? We hiked up our shorts and waded out to the first whale, smaller than I expected a whale would be, and tipped partly on its side. Fiddler crabs scuttled from under my feet. A couple of horseshoe crabs moved at a prehistoric pace through the shallow water, each dragging one brutal spike which served for a tail. We were near the naval base and a plane droned in the distance, flying low. The tide was going out. There were white splotches all over the whale. A pus wound on its back expelled a swarm of flies, which fanned out like fireworks and settled back down again. 2 expressionless eyes, partially submerged, were filmed over. My mother moved around it, keeping a distance and averting her face. She went on to the next one. I followed her to each dead whale, unsure if there might be recommended code of conduct to cover a situation such as this, the Catholics would have known what to do. They would have known what words to say. The smell was dense and putrid. I left a few cautious feet between each whale and me. We had now joined the ranks of what my mother normally dismissed contemptuously as the morbidly curious. This one's alive. She was standing by the one furthest from shore. She moved in closer to it and poked its dry black skin tentatively with her finger. She bent down and looked into its face, and then scooped some water up in her shirt tail and flung it upward. Its head became a glistening dark watermelon. The whale moved a slender, pointed fluke. It was alive. She nudged it with her foot. Swim, baby. Go on, swim. I thought a sound came from his throat. Mom, I don't think... She nudged it harder. Lily, help me. She leaned a shoulder into him. Swim, she urged. I splashed him. I supposed it was a him, although I didn't really know, with water, and pushed with her. He was stuck fast. We could sooner have pushed Cape Cod to Block Island, the two of us. Go on, swim, my mother sounded sterner. In the distance, I could hear the guns at the naval base, low and dissonant, a sound like someone laying his forearms on the bottom notes of a piano. She looked up briefly in that direction and shaded her eyes. Damn it, swim. She slid her hand into the whale's mouth and tugged on its jawbone. Let's go, Mom, we can't do anything. I was beginning to feel all alone out there. A car on the road slowed. You can swim, she demanded. She strained against the thick skin. When she stepped back to take stock, and then she stepped back to start over. It's no use, Mom, I cried. Let's go. Need some help? A man called from the road. She dug her shoulder into the whale's side. It's okay, I called uncertainly. Daddy would know what to do. Dodie would know what to do. Even Aunt Fanny would know what to do. I did not. Let's go now. We should go, Mama. The car drove away. Her hands clenched. Her jaw worked. Swim, she ordered again. Sand gave way under my foot. I teetered, and all at once I could see us, as if I were looking down from a great distance, standing up to our knees in water, on the edge of nothing more than a shifting sand dune, tiny bits of glass piled in the shape of an arm, an elbow, and a fist. The easterlymost point of the United States, fragile as a pie crust, adrift far out to sea.
Thank you, Marcia. Dougie Padilla is a Minnesota, Wisconsin poet and artist. He's published 3 chapbooks and 3 full-length books of poetry, all with Luna Brava Press. He's largely an autodidact, but learned much from years around Robert Bly. His poetry loves have included Hart Crane, Dylan Thomas, Blake, Lorca, Gary Snyder, Su Tang Po, EQ, and Hafez. Dougie writes in many styles, from lyric to memoir to haiku. He writes about Minnesota and his Norwegian-Mexican cowboy roots, about Lake Pepin, about hippie days, D-A-Z-E, and ashram life in India, about love and family, about the state of the world, about mind itself. He reads his poetry in coffee shops, bars, bookstores, and museums across the region. Of his work, Gary Snyder has said, "What a pleasure to read your poems. They are just right, and that's not easy." Dougie.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for coming, even the riffraff in the back. No, it's nice to be here in St. Paul. I don't live in the cities anymore. I've been an artist for 40-some years, and 3 years ago we moved to Northfield. And 10 years before that I moved my art studio to Pepin, Wisconsin, on Lake Pepin. So I go back and forth between rural areas and just look at cornfields, which has been good for my soul. And my wife and I live in different towns, which has been great for the marriage. You know, we always want to see each other. I usually spend hours copying my poems at 16-point type or something, so I can be sure to see them. Because I don't know if you guys know this, but for poets the type gets smaller every year. I don't know how that happens. And I just want to guarantee it here. But tonight I'm going to read from my books like a real poet does. So I've been around forever. You look younger than I am. I was hitchhiking around the country in 1966, 67, Haight-Ashbury and Summer of Love, fighting against the war in Vietnam and all that stuff. I did go to college. I went 2 years and they gave me credit for 1, which gave me street cred. So I'm going to read from my latest book, 40 Feet Down, and from the chapbook that came before that, Digging on Django. Because Digging on Django came out during COVID, so I didn't take it around much. And I'm going to have to be, I'm not going to be able to tell many stories. Because I can go on forever. This is called Digging on Django. It's, I look around and I go, okay, this crowd's going to get my references. Sometimes when I look at the crowd and they're all under 40, I go, oh, they aren't going to know what I'm talking about. So, Django Reinhardt, the great European jazz guitarist, and I use the word jazz manouche, which was his style. Digging on Django. The deluding mind is never ending. In my pursuit of awakening, I have taken most every wrong turn available, over and over again. But now this morning, as I drift into awareness, as my aching body reignites whatever ferocity it has left, as I make my way to the window and watch old men carry groceries to their beat-up pickup trucks on a very gray December day, I suddenly savor each moment, like the best wine ever, perhaps a nice Rioja from that trip to Spain I never made, or a good solid Côte du Pepin from the vineyard up the road, Dougie sitting quietly alone in the courtyard, digging on Django and his jazz manouche, the soft evening light fading, the soft evening light fading. So it's for you. It's called The Vow. It's actually for my friend Shoto too, who's a Zen priest. The Vow. It's the beginning of winter, and I'm waiting for another bear dream. One with lots of sleep in it. I could use lots of sleep. And inside the sleep there will be stars. Maybe the whole Milky Way. I could use stars too. I'll be out on the river in my boat, the boat that I have wanted forever. It will be summer. I will be alone. The only sounds I will hear are the waves lapping against the sides of the boat, small tongues tasting the fiberglass hull, tasting my boat's sweetness in the total blackness, sweetness night. But next to that blackness, that sweetness, next to the bear dreams and the Milky Way visions, I have found my way back to India, to Maharashtra. And I am taking the shortcut to the ashram. I am walking through a vacant lot next to and underneath the bridge, and there are tiny hovels everywhere. Plastic bag, gunny sack, cardboard hovels. Almost naked folks wandering about, sleeping in those hovels, cooking their rice on small kerosene stoves outside those hovels, chatting with each other, smoking their beedies, and just a short walk away, just feet away, there are piles of runny shit laying alongside the path I'm walking. And I realize these people, beyond skinny and cold, often miserable, have not had a good solid shit their entire lives. And suddenly I remember all my time in the Zendo, all that time facing the wall, watching my breath, and the vow I repeated daily. Sentient beings are numberless, I vow to save them. The deluding desires are inexhaustible, I vow to end them. The Dharma gates are boundless, I vow to enter them. The Buddha's way is unsurpassable, I vow to attain it. I mentioned the reason I did this book was when we moved to Northfield, I started looking around for, I've been meditating 55 years now, and I like meditating with groups if I can find them. And I found the Northfield Buddhist Meditation Center, and I started meditating with them, and I heard that I hung out with Zen masters and Tibetan Buddhists and all these different people, so they asked me to come and give the Dharma talk, which is a big mistake. And so they spent the next 6 months thinking about a Dharma talk, which is exactly the least Buddhist thing you could do. And I ended up going, I've got so many poems that some way relate to sort of the Dharma and that path. So I did this chapbook and got it done for my Dharma talk. So those were two of the poems I read. I mean, they were sitting around and I just put them together. And I thought tonight, I usually don't read any haiku. I'm putting out a book of haiku in January, February. And I don't read make traditional haiku. I'm a non-traditionalist. And I'll just read a few. But I figured this, I looked at this crowd and oh, they can handle something short. Because a lot of folks can. Morning dove moans on and on. Squirrels chirp and chirp. My coonhound won't last forever. Dark black night, swamp frog symphony, a kind of heaven. Here's my favorite one. I got strokes from that. If you know who Natalie Goldberg is, the writer. So the story is, when I started writing again, I wrote when I was young, and I stopped for 40 years. I started again when I moved my studio to Peck because I was trying to write my memoirs and it was just horrible. And I know it sucked, and the poetry just came pouring out. So I dug up Natalie Goldberg because I knew her back in the Zen Center days, and I found her at the San Francisco Zen Center, and she wrote back, "No, I don't remember you, but I remember your ex-wife really well." I was hoping for a poetry guru. But we started a postcard relationship, and this is the one she liked. Slender young tree, lavender blossoms. I'm so happy for you. Do this when it's March, when it's close to time. Just now from 40 feet down. There's people in this room that have heard me read before, so I was going to try to not read my greatest hits, but I believe in dogs. I believe in dogs. Not dogs that run for Congress, or dogs that have a larger vocabulary than me, but dogs that will sit through a ball game, have a beer and a pretzel, and then later discuss Camus by the fire. Even dogs that can consider Max Ernst's work, the later stuff, We're talking labs here mostly. Isn't it great when you're a poet, you're just so amused with yourself? And I believe in a nice Pinot Noir, something deep and sexy enough to assuage my fears of not having rocked my day to the max, not having changed the art world forever. We don't have to get crazy here. Something mid-range will do, say 15 or 20 bucks, something from the grocery store, something to help me make it through sunset and on to bed in time for sleep, or at least sleep's first cousin. And finally, I believe in my father, who has been gone 28 years now, not counting the endless spaces between years, once they're stood on end and numbered back to back. I mean, sure, the man had his faults, but my God, he had to ride the rails and box his way through small-town Depression-era Iowa just to eat whatever fried meat and potatoes he could find. So, obviously by looking at me, you can see that I'm Mexican-American. I'm Norwegian and Mexican and cowboy is my heritage, and I love it because I live in Peck County, and there's a few racists down there, and they always start telling stories about, them illegals, the Mexicans. So I have to say, I'm Mexican, and that just, it turned green at that point. It's called fish taco. I'm a big fish taco fan. I'm also a big Norwegian food fan, which is a little contradictory, but I think my next book, I'm going to put in a whole poem story about lutefisk for those of you that are lutefisk, and I'm going to have the recipe and everything, because I feel like somebody's got to keep lutefisk alive out there. Fish taco. I'm eating Susan's freshly made lefse, which is pretty much exactly like the lefse my mom Dougie used to make back in St. Louis Park, and also my Norski grandma Selmina made back in Winona in the 50s. Transcendent thin palaces of lightly fried, mashed, and rolled out potatoes, topped with a layer of butter, curled in my hand, downed in 3 bites, then off to the kitchen to beg for more. Sometimes, if I was lucky, they came with a sprinkling of sugar. Say if it was a holiday, like Christmas or maybe the 4th of July, and we were parked out on a sandbar on the river on Uncle Don's houseboat for the weekend. On the other hand, I am trying to remember my Uncle Alfredo's tortillas, but I don't. Instead, I remember his salsas, each fresh and particular to the moment's meal, something red with tomatoes for tacos de pollo, and something green for his pork tamales. And yes, I especially remember the turkey he cooked once, shot up with red wine for days with a hypodermic needle, and it ended up tasting like the best ham ever, as we feasted together and shot off shotguns in the front yard that night to announce my arrival, and drank all night till the high desert Chihuahuan dawn, and then I begged to go back to the hotel to sleep because I was kind of a wimp about such things and was dead on my feet. No, for the greatest tortilla ever, I would have to focus on the one that wrapped the greatest fish taco ever, which of course was probably, maybe, perhaps from that stand in East LA, the spot that I found long ago wandering on foot, like forever across LA, from my nephew Peter's apartment and through Los Feliz, and then Silver Lake, and then on across into Echo Park. Did I even make it to Echo Park? And God, there it was on a corner on Whittier Boulevard, and it was so, praise God, good that I ordered 2 and downed them fast, and then 2 more, and they were so cheap and good that I went back to the counter and thanked those folks profusely and paid them again. Paid them a second time, because such great and worthy noble efforts deserve gratitude. A great taco stand, just exactly what heaven on earth is all about, my friends. I say God bless all great taco stands forever and ever, amen. It's called The Antlerman. One more? One more.
Make it a good one.
I just did an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Well, now I gotta change poems. No. I could read one and just go into the next one and I'll tell them. It's a suite. It's a suite. Exactly. They're on my side, Marge. I'm reading this one. I have dreams. Anybody else have dreams? Anybody? I have dreams. It's called The Antlerman. 1. It's evening. The sun is growing old. Grown men, 30 of them, dance down the street. They are dancing towards me. They are in their daily clothes, in work shirts and suits, in button-downs and flannels, in lines 5 across, in lines 6 rows deep. And they are all holding deer antlers up to their heads. Deer antlers, 4-point, 6-point racks, all dancing, silently dancing, their heads bobbing left and right, all dancing towards me. They are holding antlers to their heads. They are dancing right towards me. 2. There are prayers that no one else can sing. There are prayers that no one else can know. I live alone in this farmhouse now because I can. I am not worried about finding my way back through the woods this winter. Thank you.
Thank you, Dougie. What you're experiencing tonight so often happens at Midstream and will continue to happen this evening, and that is that the readers that come to the mic are so different from each other. I love that about this series. I love to hear the variety, the just incredible talents and interests that we have in this area. So thank you again for these 2 readers. We're soon to hear our last one. Before we do, this is a space provided to us by Unity Church Unitarian for free. And we'd like to take a free will offering if you are able and interested in contributing a couple of bucks. That'll help defray their expenses. So we thank you for that. I'll just pass this around and if you wish.
Sorry.
All right. Tish Jones, our final reader. Tish Jones is a poet, MC, and hip-hop theater artist from St. Paul, Minnesota, with a deep and resounding love for Black people. Her work explores themes of Black love, liberation, politics, and Afrofuturism. She has exhibited her work throughout the United States and abroad as a public performance artist, committed to the power of narrative change through the arts. Her writing can be found in We Are Meant to Rise, University of Minnesota Press, A Moment of Silence, True Roots, and the Playwright Center, Minnesota Humanities Center's anthology entitled Blues Vision, African American Writing from Minnesota, that's from the Minnesota Historical Society Press, and more. Currently serving as a Jerome Hill Artist Fellow, Tish is grateful to have been supported through numerous grants, fellowships, and awards throughout her career. That generous support has allowed her to excavate the kind of stories that chart new worlds. She also serves as the founding executive director of True Art Speaks, and for all of it, she is eternally grateful. Please welcome Tish Jones.
Awesome, thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here. And thank you to the 2 wonderful readers who came before me. I'm gonna set a timer. Now. Set.
Hold the mic in.
For Ahmad. Tears collapse on top of your skin like heavy rain. There is wailing all around you. When you are born, it is a good thing. We celebrate the hurried and uncertain attempts to breathe. We cradle you and caress your brown skin. Momentarily, we forget about the trauma inherent in your blood. When you are born, it is a good thing. We celebrate. The ancestors' prayer manifests in the flesh. Momentarily, we forget about the trauma inherent in your blood, our blood. We imagine you living past 23. The ancestors' prayer manifests in the flesh. A future where someone with skin like yours, like soot, like soil, never meets the barrel of a white man's gun, our blood. We imagine you living past 23. Anomaly. A future where someone with skin like yours, like soot, like soil, never meets the barrel of a white man's gun. Our dreams constantly clipped at the wings. We black, no anomaly. We lucky to be alive. We live as who it could have been. Our dreams constantly clipped at the wings. We black, no. Any moment is one in which a white man might want to claim scared and shoot. We lucky to be alive. We live as who it could have been. Stomaching survivors' guilt like a bad secret only we know. Any moment is one in which a white man might want to claim scared and shoot. You did not deserve this. Stomaching survivors' guilt like a bad secret only we know. So much of us dies with each of you. You did not deserve this, the hurried and uncertain attempts to breathe. So we cradle you and caress your brown skin. Much of us dying with each of you as tears collapse on top of your skin like heavy rain. And there's wailing all around you. I learned to listen white in college, maybe. For that, I never noticed the way black folks talk to me. I was just talking with black folks. I only ever, hung with black folks. On the block at Skyline, the ghetto in the sky off of 94. Back in 90, 94, if you were poor and black, you lived there. We lived there. Can't recall talking at all back then, but listening heavy, especially with my eyes to see what words meant when things went down. Like that time Tasha sat at the dining room table, eating the fatty ends off the bacon, saying it was her favorite, and leaving the crispy parts on her plate. I mimicked that until I learned about eating white, or right, or healthily, or consciously, or by choice instead of access. By the time I could shoot a sentence out, I had heard, seen so much abuse that my mouth was full of cuss words and soap most of the time. Think I talk like someone growing up too fast. Listen for the way to survive the violence of black families with past trauma presenting itself as older cousins colonizing their little cousins' bodies in the corners of bedrooms or closets you kept quiet in when the symptoms of your daddy's daddy beating on him meant someone in the house was going to catch a slave type whooping that day. And guns, and drugs, and gangs, and... I listened for how the adults managed or talked about it, but they didn't, so I didn't, and did learn to talk like them, silent and around the issue, quick, repetitive, and with urgency, loud sometimes, not at all, to the wrong people, in ways other than through the language I was taught to speak, then through the language I was taught to speak. College messed me up. Love too. Kinda all came at the same time. On a campus, trying to learn a dialect so foreign it feigned fake. I thought it was. I thought I was schizophrenic at times, never trusting what was around me, had no reason to. It had been touched by the same things I had just got out of. Fact was, I didn't ask for it. It happened. I bent my ear and tongue to the way white folk talk because that's what black folk told black children to do, because white folk told black folk that the only way out of the circumstances they created for us was for us to recreate ourselves in their image, and we ain't know no better but to believe them, raising our children to disavow the embodied way we speak, full-bodied and with-body too, coded, layered, percussive, nuanced, with key embedded in rhythm, which is to say with deliverance buried in between the breaths, pauses, and punctuations for so long that we proceeded to pay them to break us in college, in institutions named aptly after oppressors, a new season's seasoning. I couldn't hear the way my love laid her insecurities before me and dressed me in them. Couldn't hear the truth in her silence, see the brokenness of blackness in her backstory too. Couldn't hear my confidence break in my own pleas for respect. Couldn't hear my godmom when she said, why do you want to be with somebody who keeps telling you they don't want to be with you? Because I was deep in it. Too busy listening white. The cadence of black warning signs was now lost on me. My godmom called me home, but I couldn't hear anything she was saying, let alone get there. Recognize it. I forgot how to be hurt and survive still. The language of black people is a language riddled with pain and here. complicated, and completed by the way we don't say directly things that can both free and destroy us, probably because we don't know if it will free or destroy us. So we talk and listen like black folk know. It's a tender and delicate violence that my generation has unknowingly been encouraged to abandon, for better or worse. The degree of whiteness I sought in my college years, and how without my people, tongue, and ear, it swept me so far away from myself that I spent years mistaking the repetition in my mother's speaking pattern as a need to be heard rather than the lighthouse it is for anyone within earshot. I'm sorry, mama. Or the brevity in my best friend's discourses, love lost, rather than the fat being trimmed by a bruh who only wastes minutes when that escapism thing kicks in and World Star becomes the epicenter of his hour. Listening white made me think my brother was betraying me because he didn't want to have meetings about the meeting. I mean, we just had it. That's how black folk move sometimes. Cats just want to know if you're good in the midst of their own attempts to make it. My bad, G, things got loud. I stopped hearing my grandma and grandpa's voices, stopped searching for mine. I think I was too scared to be black in my survival. Listen, white for so long, the poison of proximity had my priorities and pride messed up. I put myself and projections on. I put myself off and projections on. Got lost in the babble of capitalism and disassociated. I ain't said ish because I ain't heard ish. And I ain't heard ish because I wasn't listening well. I am now. To anyone who's reading this and knows me, I may owe you an apology. You may have been trying to reach me black, and I may have been listening white. I'm sorry for that, and making my way back. May, verb, expressing possibility, may very well have been our time or turn or time to turn the tides of our lives lost. So, it costs more. May as well not be matter to them. Matter of fact, since they react less to knees on our necks than signs on our lawns, May, now, one's bloom or prime. I guess this was our May. Our buds blossom, full body, blood red and enraged. Our moment to be the thorn adorned our beautiful crowns. No May, now, 5th month of the year in the Northern Hemisphere will ever not hit us in our hearts, emulating attack and strike back all at once. But be that as it may, verb expressing permission, you may survive this moment. Go on, because they don't want you to imagine past the unimaginable. That's why they play our demise on repeat. They won't repeat the past and get you back begging, Massa, may I, but maybe the time is up on that.
That's great.
Whenever I leave Golden Time, Dallin says, be safe. Looks me in the eyes and doesn't blink. My honest response is typical reciprocal. It's a head nod, 2 raised eyebrows, and a YouTube fan leave my lips as effortlessly as breath. This is our custom. We have become accustomed to being accosted, so we speak protection prayers over our kin as we part. Pull one another in by the palm and cover them in hymns while embracing heart to heart. It looks mega hip hop, I'm sure, but this is heritage. It's an inherited hatred that we are actively shielding ourselves from. One can only wonder if the parting prayer before a sit-in was also be safe. Before a march in Bull Connor's banner, Bama was be safe. It has resurfaced as a Negro spiritual for cats that thought they had nothing to sing about, let alone pray for it. Every time one of my people put that psalm on me, I pause. I've never been the type to walk light when the sermon's over. Too enthralled with the message, I picture our ritual. It's palm, shake, grip, pull, release. We shake up to get grounded in the brown of another's flesh. A fresh reset from wherever we had previously stepped. My brother's chest will always be home, confessional, solace, and a safe space to rejoice in. I come home religiously, especially since they have taken to shooting up churches. I seek a sameness that no other body but this body provides. Asylum and solidarity in the way we say it all without speaking. Head nods, daps, black power fists, all forms of I love you coded in black speak because they have been known to kill what we love in front of us. We dare not make our love too obvious. Must give it muscle and pain, movement and contact, make a sport of it. We are targets already, can't afford to let them see us vulnerable too. So play action, be safe, will do. A contemporary I love you, an ancestral ask to some God somewhere to return this one. Please, be safe is spoken in waters a garden of black boys with roots for feet, perpetually growing adjacent a plot of black girls with box braids beaming beneath the sun. This is where the taking continue, where Tamir gets to be 12 and play in the park, where Philando gets to serve, where blackness is beautiful, and we come to forgive the trees for being forced to wear us like ornaments and gather at the base of their trunks, garnering our breath. There are gods. These are the gods of our protection, this field of ancestors whose prayers were interrupted by a corrupt system. They start listening for the percussive nature of departure, the sound of love slapping skin like living djembe players, followed by the softest call for them to walk with us, as us, black and deeply loved by someone who simply wants to see us alive and safe. All right, last joint. Before I was born, there was movement. Paddles pushing pent-up people through oceans of pain. That explains my fear of water. When I was born, there was movement still. Lines, paths, roads, circles, and tracks. Check it, I had my first perm in elementary school. I went from coarse, curly black hair to straight thin. Then what are you gonna do with this dude after that? I did braids, weaves, ponytails, extensions, this mohawk, ducktail design on the side type thing. Now I have locks, but before all of that, I also wore tracks. Then there was high school, St. Paul Central, big gray 5th floor in a basement building. Kind of looks like a prison, kind of ran like one too. The 5th floor was for the academic acronyms like AP and IB. The 4th floor was for the quest learners, second to the best grade point average earners. The third was whatever. The second was pass, and the first was us, the theater class. How we were placed in this system also tracks. Pause. My name is Tish Jones, and I have been called here to represent ancestors whose blood sifted through the palms of my little brother's hands as he plays in the sand, and they bless him. I'm talking forefathers who existed before my forefathers and raised men to raise men, hence the sun and the raisin. Then a generation of beautiful black women born and bred to believe that beauty belongs to everyone but them. So they die and they fry and they try to fit in many ways, allowing trains to leave tracks on their thighs because the tracks attached to the root of her naps will chain to the middle of her back and do self-respect. And she is all right with that. They call her a runner, making laps on laps. Known as a track star, she is right on someone else's track. And then there's a little boy whose father was sent away yesterday, you feel me? He's sitting in the hallway, frustrated, fighting to keep his tears to himself. She walks by, she's smart, skinny, makes failing a test seem hard. If you don't believe me, peep her report card. Anyway, she and he were cool. They went to the same school, hung in the same crew, did things that two best friends would normally do until that day after taking that test when she got labeled advanced and he got labeled a fool. What does he do? He does what he feels he has to. He then becomes a star mathematician, a genius in the kitchen. He studies how different greens and whites might help with his addition, a financial advisor for women, pimping and flipping. Now he fights his tears inside of a prison, right next to Pops, all because of a test on a day where he was feeling a little unrested, wasn't prepared. His day was going awry. Anyway, forget it. Just play track, black boy, or football, or basketball, or ball, black boy, rob, steal, fail, get money, get girls, and go to jail. You do the same, black girl, read Cosmo, People, Vibe, and Vixen. Try all your life to find the place that you fit into. You see, I represent broken histories, missing text from textbooks, kinesthetic learners that don't test good, products of society, 24 hours of good, clean sobriety, and a language that I play with because mine was taken in a country that shunned me, and I have so much stake in it. Of people who are a direct result of an action taken, and people who fear those people, so they've created laws to evade and contain them inside of lines, paths, roads, circles, and tracks. My name is Tish Jones, and I have been called here to represent the missing piece. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tish, and to all of our readers. Wow, been a great night. Please stick around when we adjourn here to meet the readers and chat with one another. Dougie brought some books up here if you'd like to browse those. And if you'd like to keep the evening going, people occasionally head over to Sweeney's, which is a bar with a full menu on Dale Avenue at around Selby, just a few blocks away. Next month, our readers will be on October 10th, the second Thursday. Howard Lieberman, Rebecca Ramsden, Julia Barner, and a fourth mystery guest that hasn't yet been named.
It'll be on the 17th, not the 10th.
It is the 17th. I thought I must have put it in my calendar wrong. So it's the third Thursday, October 17th. You heard it here. Once I was corrected. All right. Final round of applause for our readers. They're fabulous. Thank you for coming.